press conference, weekly press conference. We think it's important that we do these weekly press conferences because we want the people of the state of Alabama to know exactly what the Democratic Caucus stands for. And that is to work for all of the people, not just some. Now, I'm here to address a couple of issues. The first issue that I will address would be the procedures that occurred this morning in the House chamber. We had what was called a 10-minute calendar. By our rules, a 10-minute calendar has historically been a calendar in which basically non-controversial bills were placed, and if anybody had a problem with the bill, they could address that bill, and if they addressed it for 10 minutes, then that bill would not be able to move forward. It wouldn't kill the bill, but it would just move it back on the calendar. So this morning, though, we had what I have deemed a cloture 10-minute calendar. And I deemed it that because based on our rules, whenever a cloture petition is offered, we have 10 minutes of debate after the cloture petition, and then it moves on up. So basically, without having debated the bill at all prior to a cloture petition, we got the 10 minutes of debate. That right there is something that's unheard of within our body as of today, until today. I have addressed it with leadership. I've addressed it with Representative Daniels, who is our minority leader, and we are going to actually continue to have dialogue regarding that, and hopefully this is not something that's going to occur again. If it is, then we've got to use whatever tools we may have in our box, and at this point in time, I would not dare say what we may consider doing, but we'd use whatever tools are in our box to actually give notice to the majority that this is not something that we appreciate. It's not something that allows us to represent the 48,000 people that we individually represent. There are 28 Democrats in the caucus, and all 28 of us have somewhere in the neighborhood of 48,000 people that we represent. That's the first issue I wanted to address. The second issue that I want to address is the governor's Black Bag the Blue bill, omnibus of bills. There are a number of bills in that package that we do truly support as Democrats. We also truly supporting our law enforcement officers, providing them with everything that they could possibly need to do their jobs effectively, because all of us want to feel safe in our communities and in our homes. So, having been a former police officer, I also understand the challenges that you will have out there as a police officer, the split-second decisions that you have to make. And this bill, we have had conversation with the sponsor, we've had conversation with the governor's office, we've had conversation with law enforcement and the speaker's office and others. And the conversation is, we will sit down and all address this bill so that we can get it to the point where, I tell you the best way that I can say it, a bill that everybody is unhappy with. Because once you're giving up something and we're giving up something, that's the process that we should go through. And by addressing it in that manner, I think we'll be able to come out with a bill that nobody is happy with, but everybody will be able to live with, and it will be beneficial, and it will bring about safety for all the citizens, not just the blue, but for those that encounter the blue. That's what we have to be fair about. So the immunity bill is one that we're going to have some additional dialogue, conversation, and I want to thank the sponsor and the speaker and everyone for understanding that this bill was not at a point where we really could address it and it be addressed fairly. But they've agreed that we will all sit down and begin to work on it, and that's the part of this press conference that I was charged with addressing. So I'm going to now turn it over to Representative Morris, who will do a much better job of addressing her issue than I can do of addressing mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCampbell. You did an awesome job of talking about the things that concern us as a caucus. We really appreciate that. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. As many of you are aware, increasing public safety has long been a priority for the Alabama Democratic Party. And we are pleased that the governor and our colleagues across the aisle share some of our concerns. Sadly, communities throughout Alabama continue to deal with the short and long-term consequences of gun violence, which tragically remains the #1 cause of death for Alabama children. That is why House Democrats continue to introduce and support common sense gun legislation. Representative Drummond's House Bill 103, which simply requires gun owners to safely store their weapons in a secure manner that would prevent children from accessing them, or worse, bringing them to school. The bill would provide a criminal penalty against a parent or legal guardian when his or her minor child unlawfully possesses a firearm on the premises of a public school as a result of the parent or legal guardian's failure to reasonably secure the firearm. Let's be clear, this bill does not infringe upon Second Amendment rights. We strongly believe that safe and responsible gun storage will help prevent school shootings, as well as the high amount of accidental gun-related tragedies that have hurt so many Alabama families and children. In order to improve public safety, we support giving local law enforcement the tools and resources they need to not only respond to and prosecute crimes, but also to increase community policing as a key component in preventing crime. Community policing isn't just a political talking point. It is an effective and evidence-based strategy in which law enforcement proactively engages with the community groups and citizens to increase public safety. It works because citizens begin to see law enforcement as a member of their community that understands their local concerns. I mention this because a bill has been recently introduced by Senator Barfoot, SB 3, which would allow the Alabama Attorney General or governor to appoint local police chiefs if they believe there is a public safety threat in a city or local community. The problem with this bill is that it takes control away from local officials that understand the specific and unique needs of the communities they serve. In other words, this is a classic case of government overreach because it interferes with municipalities' right to govern itself. Not only does SB 3 negate the proven benefits of community policing strategies, it has the potential to be used in a partisan political manner without increasing public safety, which means it's not going to increase public safety. It's just being used as a partisan political strategy. So as we look to address gun violence and crime, we must stay focused on practical solutions that addresses the root of the problem, too many guns, too many guns and too many illegal weapons, modifications in the hands of people and children who should never have access to these deadly weapons in the first place. As we said when we announced our legislative agenda, forward for freedom, we know that with freedom comes responsibility. That is why, as legislators, we must take our consequences into account, whether they be purposeful or unintentional. In order for us to move forward for freedom, we must balance our desire for freedom with our solemn responsibility to protect the freedoms of others. And that means having the freedom to go to school or church without the fear of becoming another gun violent victim. And I would like to thank you all, and I would like to introduce Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Representative Lawrence. When we look at gun safety and immunity in our state and nation, I would like to bring to your attention what happened on J6 in 2021. The insurrection that took place at the Capitol. And I would like to also bring back to your recollections on January the 20th, 2025. The special order that went out from the president to release all of those persons that was incarcerated for attacking people in blue at the Capitol. Today we discussed the importance of public safety, but I support bills that my colleagues had referenced as other measures introduced by members of our caucus that will reduce gun violence and crime in our communities. However, I also believe that in order to improve public safety, we must also ensure that law enforcement is transparent, accountable, and responsible, especially in situations that may involve foreseeable restraints of the use of a weapon. Now we know the weapons that were used, J6, flagpoles, bats, clubs, bear spray, even fire extinguishers. That's why deeply I am concerned and troubled by House Bill 202, sponsored by Representative Reynolds, which would drastically expand what is commonly known as qualified immunity for police officers. Before I address my concerns, let me say that I have enormous respect for all the men and women that wear blue, brown, and green. Anybody's enforcing law and order in our state and nation. They work to do the law and they keep our neighborhood safe. They protect and serve us. But being a law enforcement officer doesn't mean that you are above the law. In fact, due to the power that comes along with the duties of our police and other officers should be held in an even higher standard of ethics and behavior with accountability. My question is, why is this bill necessary? Especially given the current immunity protection that are already being granted by the police. Under current law, it is very difficult to hold an officer criminally or civilly accountable when they violate the law or the department policies. And why would we make it even harder to hold them accountable in cases where they have clearly misbehaved and used excessive force or deliberately violated procedures? As much as we want to believe that the police act appropriately in all situations, we know especially with the use of body cameras and videos are taken by bystanders that always does not simplify the cause. According to the University of Illinois in Chicago School of Public Health in the United States, during any given year, an estimated 1 million civilians experience police threats or use of force, resulting in a conservative estimate of about 75,000 non-fatal injuries requiring hospital treatment and 600 to 1,100 deaths. Both African Americans, Latinos are twice as likely to experience that threat or use of force during these police initiative contacts. And based on the CDC data, Black Americans are more than twice as likely to be killed and almost 5 times more likely to suffer an injury requiring medical care or hospitalization, while non-Hispanics are much less. When considering the data, it's important to note that it is extraordinarily rare for law enforcement officers to be convicted of crimes committed in the line of duty and protecting and serving. We must be accountable to them, and they also must be accountable to us in the force to pay damages in the civil suits. Furthermore, they are not facing significant amounts of frivolous lawsuits or unjust prosecutions. Officers are already shielded from those things when they act within the law and respect constitutional rights. Under current law, when a frivolous lawsuit or unjust prosecution arises, Alabama judges are already quick to dismiss them. All this bill does is make it harder to hold an officer accountable for wrongdoing, and by any measure that is not justice. While we highly respect our law enforcement community, we also believe in being a police officer doesn't mean one is a license to exceed their authority with impunity. Nor does it justify legal acts performed willfully and maliciously, fraudulently, or in a bad faith. We expect our police to protect and serve us, not violate our rights or ignore proper procedures with no accountability. I want to thank you for the time that you've given us, and we'll be happy, if we can, to answer your questions, if you have any.
Brother Randy.
Mr. McCampbell, this is from you, but if any representative want to jump in, please do. You were mentioning the 10-minute calendar that pretty much started the day off. After you went through, there was a very interesting bill that came up for debate, discussion, and as a result, that 10 minutes came into effect. That bill, controversial, that bill was something interesting. Your take on that bill and the fact that it came right after that calendar.
That's you.
I thought he was talking to me. This morning the procedure just it was out of the realm of political procedures. I said it was like, as we used to call bait and switch, but it was cunning and crafty. As we look at it this morning, nobody knew about this until late night on our side of the aisle. But what happened this morning when someone want to tell you what you are, and you know what you are, and they're gonna give you a definition of what they think you're supposed to be. And this is not the purpose of government. And I looked at that this morning in a sense of are we playing politics? Are we doing the bidding of the religious right? And that was more of a religious right bill rather than a political aspect of it. And that's why I responded the way I responded. And if you look at the scriptures, Galatians 3:28 said there's no male or female, Jew or Gentile, huh? Those that are in prison or slave or free, but we are one in Christ. So the question I ask What sex is God? Since you want to, all of us come from Him, but you're going to tell us what the meaning of your ideology and what your religious right privilege try to force itself on others that don't think and believe in the way that you believe. That's why I was where I was this morning. And the color came in because I thought about a rainbow. I asked the court, what color is God? What sex is God? And that wasn't me thinking, that was things that was happening as I was standing there this morning. No pre-plan, just things, because I didn't know what was going on until I got on the floor of the house. I hope I tried to answer that to the best of my ability. It might not be to your specificity.
I think that was a bill that was politically charged, and it was a bill that the right really didn't want to have to deal with, so they came up with this 10-minute closure calendar so that the ability to hear the arguments for or against the bill could not be heard in public. And that's basically what this 10-minute closure calendar was designed to do. Any other questions?
Can I say something?
Yes.
In any subject matter of that significant need debate, whether we get 3 to 5 hours, because people need to understand what is being taken place here at their house, the people's house. But the people were not involved in the process. It was a party that had taken control, and they did what they was told to do, and that's what's done. Bill passed.
And if you notice the thing about our votes, the Democratic Party believes in the ability of individuals to represent their constituents. Some voted for it, some didn't vote at all, some voted against it. If you look at the Democratic votes, we were instructed that, you have to vote your constituents and your conscience. So, any other questions? Yeah, it's always great to be a Democrat.
I'm wondering if there's any other parts of the crime package that give you concern or that you're hoping to modify at all. I'm thinking specifically, I've heard mixed things from Democrats about the expansion of bail or Ania's law, but if there's anything else that stands out to you as something that needs to be kind of reconsidered or addressed.
Well, the good thing about it, the leadership decided that they would not push forward with these bills in committee this morning, and would give us more time to look at the bills, because when you bring a package of bills and nobody other than those involved in the crafting of the bills get an opportunity to see them and review them until the day they are going to go in committee, I think that is very disingenuous in terms of your desire to have a bipartisan bill. It's meaning that you want us to just sign on to what you think needs to happen. I talked about we would begin to try and come up with a bill when it came to the immunity bill that actually nobody liked. That's nobody on the left, nobody on the right would like. That's a good bill. These other bills, we've already seen some problems with them, but we have an opportunity now to address them and try to come up with some consensus in terms of how they should be written so that it is best for the whole population and not just a few. Does that help you any?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me say something. I got to say this since it's been as a press conference. Why are we here? Well, we had the right side of the aisle to pass these laws. Open carry. You don't have to have a permit to get a gun. And so crime has increased since that law has passed. And now you got bills that come to want to have the governor or the attorney general to place chief of police over local communities when the rank and file or the local government has no say so over. This is dictatorial type of governing, authoritarian leadership. We can't go that route. That happened in Mississippi. I think the state of Mississippi did that for Jackson, Mississippi. Came in and put judges over the city because they didn't like the way that things were happening on the people that elected their judges. They wasn't putting too many. They wasn't having enough people locked up, I guess. And it troubles me. Crime is more than just putting people in prison or locking them up. That's a broad branch of what crime is all about. Should be preventing, mostly, educating people. See, we got a thing in Alabama. You lock them up and throw the key away. That's supposed to solve everything. So we can build prisons, but we don't want to educate people. We don't want to. We don't want to have them healthy. But we're going to build billion-dollar prisons to incarcerate. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, in that case, we want to thank you for coming today, and we'll see you again next week at 1 o'clock.